I think it's really cool to be here because this is a learning process, and I'm going to teach you a few lessons about community power. Because I think there's something you're missing here. You want to be the world's healthiest place. You want to be the place where you live longest and you are the most happy and gentle people and all these sort of things. You should also be the world's greenest place. So that's a challenge. Are you on for that? I'm from a small island in Denmark called Samsø. We won a competition in 1997 to be the Danish renewable energy island. We had to fulfill an ambition from the government to be 100% self-supplied by renewables by just developing in 10 years. So the 10-year development plan was leading us in that direction. So we pledged to give up fossil fuels and convert to 100% renewable energy by 2008. And we did so. We are now carbon negative. We have a minus 3.7 tons carbon emission per capita on my island. That's pretty cool. So, what we had to learn in this process was to be able to do the things that we set off to do. I mean, everybody's talking about sustainability as if something we know what is. I mean, do you know what sustainable is and what is sustainable in general? There'll probably be a lot of different explanations on that. But we have kind of translated this in a different way. And now we say that sustainability is to sustain and be able to do it. So it's more about ability than to sustain things. So the ability of doing things is actually to be able to do things. It's an action thing. This is my island. It's very beautiful. It's probably the most beautiful island in the world. I take that's an agreement. I mean, and on this island, we then set off to establish wind turbines. When I came over here, there was a decent good wind, so you can have some wind turbines here on Guernsey. You agree? All right. I didn't think you would agree. We didn't in the beginning. People were very afraid of these big machines out there on the horizon, spoiling the landscape. So we tried to change the paradigm. You can see the picture here. You have these 1 megawatt wind turbines. They're 77 meters high, pretty high structures. And out there on the horizon, this is a very early morning picture. You see the smokestack. There's smoke coming out of a chimney. That's a nearby onshore power plant, which via a cable was supporting us really dirty black energy in the beginning. So we actually used the argument that the wind turbines was not there to spoil our environment, but actually to help our environment by ventilating the smoke away from the island when we were producing. People took that argument for good, and we established wind turbines are now self-supplied. We didn't think that we were going to make this because it was a big project, a very big engineering project, and a very, very expensive project also. So in the beginning, people were just kind of saying, yeah, that's fine, that's something from Copenhagen, this is a capital top-down decision. We cannot do this. We don't have the capacity. But we learned step by step that we actually have the capacity to do things like this. So 3 years after, we have these offshore wind turbines, and they were like for 2 or 3 months, they were the biggest offshore wind turbines in the world. So that's another challenge. Make the biggest tidal machines out here in the world because you have some significant tides here. There's a lot of power to kind of harvest for you too. We used proven technologies and did good with that. But again, we needed to define ourselves. Who are we in the community to make these decisions? Because that's where the difficult part is. Who are we? Because we could say that we are the people of Samsø and we're going to do this together. But together doesn't mean anything for people because they are divided in groups. There's a group of farmers, there's some business people, there's some newcomers from the city that kind of have a dream about this green, kind of beautiful, peaceful island that they don't want change at all. And we have other people with other ideas also. So we have to sit down and talk about who are we making these decisions. So it's actually a matter of talk and communication and development of ideas and innovation and stuff like that. Much more than technology. I mean, we probably have some engineers here. Yeah, some, engineers, they're probably the most arrogant people in the world. They know everything. They're so smart, these guys. They can figure it out. So that's good also. So I also like engineers because you can always call them and ask them a question. Say, can we fix that? Of course we can. I'll figure it out. So we need to talk about community. How do we do this? We also need to define leaders because in communities there's always leaders. There's elected leaders and there's kind of not elected leaders, but natural leaders who kind of stand up and say, I have an idea. And if it's the right person, you'll follow this person and say, we trust this guy. He's usually a good leader and he can stand up for his things and he'll finish what he has set off to do. That's interesting. Find the blacksmith. That's kind of an acronym or an abstract for a leader. We have the system in operation. The system is this is really complicated. And the system has been so effective and so good for us that we today not really trust ourselves anymore. We trust the system to do it for us. So that's why you have a cable to France and you have all the electricity coming over here and you don't really care about it, only if there's no power when you switch on and switch off. So the system is kind of abstract also. We don't really understand it, but it's there to service us. We need to take that responsibility back and decentralize it and make it our own system so we can be responsible for it. This take kind of a dream about a future. Like you already announced here, you have a lot of dreams about being the world's biggest, the world's best, and the world's first. So the vision is to sit down and talk about where do we want to be in 10 years' time? What will happen if we sit down and think all the wildest thoughts we can produce and then start realizing, backcasting them to get to this point in 10 years' time, what do we do tomorrow and the day after? So we need to define that. We call it commodities. This is a strange word, it doesn't really exist. It's not because I don't spell English, but it's a new word which is a construction of the commons, which is what everybody shares, and the communities. So the common plus communities means commodity. I don't know if you can accept that. That can be a new coin we can buy stuff with. So we had a great revolution when we started technology development many years ago. It took away the manpower, the need for labor, and started kind of engineering and making things very easy for people, so people got out of work. Now I think we need to make a green revolution because peak oil is already history. Green growth is taking over, local decentralized systems are possible, and community power will create jobs and strengthen local culture and social life. It's actually taking back the difficult work to the local places so we can create new jobs in this transition. I think that is really needed. For this, we need to create ideas and fireplaces where people will gather around. This metaphor for a good idea, a kind of a bonfire, is where people sit around because it's nice and warm, and you can, if you have a fish on a stick, you can cook it, and somebody will bring a few beers, and somebody has a guitar, and suddenly you are a little community sitting having a really good time and talking about what to do next. So for this, I need to kind of bring in some people. I have a little video from Samsø. I'll talk to you afterwards about what we're doing here, because we have changed the paradigm of development from best practice to next practice. So this is not about being best, but what we do next. This is where we have something at stake.
I hope to meet inspiring people who can add some new insights to what this green transition or this sustainability that we talk about, what that is and what kinds of challenges and solutions we're facing.
I hope to transform the idea of common sense, common goal into building levels so we can all achieve a sustainable future.
I hope that this next practice will learn me about communities and how to develop local solutions on energy and other sustainable developments.
I hope to broaden our network and to lift this sustainable development to a higher level faster.
I hope to bring home how to put all of this we're talking about, the sustainability we're talking about, the next practice we're talking about, into action back home.
If you never go somewhere where you don't know what the outcome will be, you would never get surprised.
If we are more systematic in our approach to sustainability, we could also be more systematic in finding out what the next practices should be.
What if we worked well together to create the future we want? I think all of those are exciting things, and that's what I'm hoping to learn.
We are investigating how we can actually go from best to next. So we need our partners, our new colleagues, and the unknown to come and share the knowledge.
Well, in any development, there's always a next practice. I mean, you know what you do and you know where you have been, but where are you going? So this transition from being to kind of expecting or visualizing the future is kind of it is an exercise that you need to kind of take up every now and again to refresh your plans, your ambition, your connection, your network, and all the things that is necessary for the next thing to happen. And when we have done that, we hopefully have a more clear vision or more clear idea of the next practice.
Our conversation around envisioning the next step for Samsø was really inspiring, and it allowed us to do some abstract thinking and some dreaming even, and I came up with ideas that I'd even like to take back to my own campus.
I think I've been reminded about how important it is to create spaces where a diversity of people can come and share. It's important that we kind of evoke things from each other, but also that we provoke each other. So we've had speakers who are interesting in their own right, but also have given us a provocation to think differently.
The thing that made the biggest influence on me during these 2 days was the passion that people have for the project and for seeing the work that's done on this island be successful.
And still in all of us there is that little boundary of, am I really giving time to what I truly think is the most important thing in my life? And that is always a provocation when you have to be self-reflective. Am I actually giving time to what I say is important? How is my life being ordered that it is a demonstration of what I truly believe in and what I truly want to see happen here?
I think that we all want to see this island continue to be a model of sustainability and increase its capacity to influence what's happening in other places in the world.
This was a little greeting from my Energy Academy back home at the Energy Island where we're working. So what we do is that we gather people in circle meetings. There's somebody who says that the people who set up the chairs for the meeting, they decide the outcome of the meeting. So you can have an expert meeting where you have one person talking to an audience, or you can have a meeting where everybody is experts and everybody contribute with what they know, which is the way we try to organize. And then we try to make networks where we don't really know who is the next partner in the game for us. So we try to reach out in these meetings. We kind of make new connections and make new networks that will help us go to kind of the next phase of our development. So we believe in communities being a diversity of people in the meeting. We have a tendency to meet with people we think we are aligned with, who has the same interest. But sometimes it's very interesting to meet with your opposition, that with the guy that you think will work against you or who has a resistance against wind turbines. Bring them in the room from the beginning and have the crying period over and done with before you start making decisions. Otherwise it'll come later, and we don't want that. So we talked a little bit about how can you define leadership. I've saw a lot of blonde and reddish people here. I think they are kind of descendants from my grandfathers from the Viking period. They came rowing down here. I mean, after a long day, they kind of saw there's land out there somewhere. We don't know what it's called. Now they know it's Guernsey, but they don't know what it's called. Let's get to shore and get some beer and see if there's any beautiful lady we can chase up. And if there's any gold and prosperous thing, I mean, we can steal and bring home. Viking leadership was interesting, because it's about being accountable, it's maintaining social alliance, it's a shared leadership structure, and it's built on trust. You really had to trust each other. If like 50 longboats took off from Denmark and rowed all the way down in head current, all the way to go down here. It took a lot of courage in open boats those days to do that. How did they organize it? I think it was built on trust. So the Viking leadership model is what we try to do now. We make every individual leaders of their own project, and we as organizers in the Energy Academy, we try to help people structure this, because there's a lot of red tape and bureaucracy in the modern world, which is really difficult to overcome. So normal people in normal lives, having normal lives, they don't really have time to do this. So we offer people to be the secretary, write the minutes, send out invitations, and do all the paperwork for people so they can spend their time on being creative citizens engaged in investing and owning the infrastructure. And when you own the infrastructure, then the wind turbine suddenly looks better. It even sounds better, because it's yours. If it belongs to the electricity company or to the neighbor, then it doesn't look good, and it sounds really bad. And it causes a lot of different problems. So community, you don't have to read this. There's a lot of things you have to consider when you make a good meeting and when you make the community engaged in things here also. But a lot of it is about trust and understanding your opponent or the other guy on the other side of the street, what he or she thinks. Because community is a holistic approach to kind of a life and an organizational structure. So in my presentation here, my point has been to make you understand that we are not special. I think islands are special. And I think you have this island attitude here. I can feel it as soon as I enter this shore here. I saw it from the airplane. I could see this little plot of land, and I could feel that this was a nice place, and it's kind of an adventure to land here and see what kind of people are you here on Guernsey. What are you thinking about? What are you dreaming about? And how is the life here on this island? And it's really interesting to see if you are inviting people or you're kind of resisting people. But I felt quite welcome here. I think we should think about this as islands being small laboratories of change and development. And we can do things because we can talk to each other, and we can actually meet people very quickly. We can call them and organize structures and bring them to the table and say, let's look at this. There's a potential here. There's an opportunity of change we can make together. And if we sit down and talk about it, we also have the strength and the capacity to run it and own it and facilitate the change. Where sometimes I think in the modern world, it's so complicated and it's so multinational and top-down that we are left out of it. We are not in the decision-making, and we'll be ignorant customers at the end of the day. And we don't want to be that. I want to be part of the problem-solving also. So even if it's a tough game sometimes and there's a risk, I feel that it's more interesting to be on a burning platform where we can solve things than being in a safe place where nothing really is at stake. So being kind of in the center of development, especially if you have a say in it, that's, I think, the most important thing. So let's make a deal here. Guernsey, you want to be green in the next, within the next 10 years. I think you have the 2020 goals. So the new logo is Go Guernsey, Go Green. Is that okay? So the only thing we can finish with is like a thumbs up for this, and you all express this by saying community power. Is that right? Can you do that? Okay, up. Let's see the thumbs up. Now on 3. 1, 2, 3. Community power. Right. Thank you very much.